With the new stimulus package that was just passed by the Senate, there's a lot of conversation going around saying that all student loans are now forgiven or canceled. Well, in this video, I'm gonna go break down the truth about student loan forgiveness and what this stimulus package actually did about the future of student loan forgiveness. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Sam Kwok here with one of the Kwok brothers. Now, indeed, the stimulus package has been passed by the Senate. Now it has to go to the House for a revote and ultimately signed by the president for it to go into effect. So the Senate just passed the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 on Saturday, March 6th. Now, the bill does include some of the other provisions like the $1,400 direct payment to all taxpayers earning less than $75,000 per year. Also, this bill extends the federal unemployment benefit of $300 a week till September, $170 billion to reopen schools, $100 billion to expand vaccine distribution, and also the expansion of child tax credit up to $3,600 per child, which is $3,000 per child above the age of 6, and $3,600 for children for less than 6 years old. Now, the fact of the matter is that this bill does not cancel and forgive student loans, but it does pertain a very important fact and changes to what could lead to student loan forgiveness down the road. Now, last week I did make a video stating some of the roadblocks and challenges when it comes to the idea of student loan forgiveness, and this particular bill that just got passed on Saturday does remove one particular roadblock, and also removes the roadblock of subscribing to our channel and smashing the like button on this video because it does help us out. But seriously, if you guys feel like this video is helpful and valuable by the time you're done watching it, do so, subscribe, and smash the like button to help us out with our YouTube algorithm. Okay, so what does this bill actually do to help with student loan forgiveness? Now, I already addressed the fact that this bill doesn't forgive student loans. Now, there's a lot of conversation, myth, and rumors going around saying that, oh, this bill just forgave $10,000 of student loans or $50,000 of student loans. Not all true, and I'll break it down to you guys in a plain word, plain English, as to what this bill actually does to student loan forgiveness. So one of the roadblocks that this bill does solve and does remove is that if student loan forgiveness does happen, individuals would have to pay more in taxes, and here's how that actually works. So for example, let's say an individual is making $36,000 a year from their working job. Now, they would pay an effective tax rate, assuming that they're single, no children, no other tax exemptions or breaks. They would pay at about 7.32%, which is about $2,634. But let's say this same individual has $50,000 of their student loans completely canceled and forgiven under certain programs that might be out there. Now, if $50,000 is forgiven and canceled, with the current tax law, that $50,000 is added to the person's income when it comes to filing taxes, which means that this individual now has to pay taxes on $50,000, which essentially will make their total income $86,000. So in that example, with the current tax law, that person will now pay an effective rate of 13.9%, which is about $11,982. Now, keep in mind, they didn't make more than $36,000. They just had $50,000 of their loan forgiven. But with the existing tax law, that $50,000 will be added to the net income. So essentially, they would pay a double the amount of tax rate, but they went from $2,634 to $11,982. That's almost 1/3 of their entire income in a given year. So you can see that this adds insult to the injury by the fact that, well, they got their student loan forgiven, but they're not quite out of the woods yet because they have to pay a ton of taxes when and if the student loan is forgiven. Now, with this new bill, this new stimulus package that just got passed by the Senate, and if it does get passed by the House and ultimately signed by the president, the student loan forgiveness pretty much till the end of 2025 would become tax-free, meaning that if, for the same example, if $50,000 was forgiven in terms of their student loan balance, they're gonna pay the original $2,634 as if they still make $36,000, not having that $50,000 being added to their income when filing taxes. So this is really, really great news for individuals that are getting student loan forgiveness till now and 2025 if this bill does get passed and become effective by law. Now, the question is, who's actually eligible, right? Who actually gets this benefit when and if this stimulus package does get passed? Now, there are existing student loan forgiveness programs that are already tax-free, and those are forgiveness for working in a particular occupation, such as public service, teachers, certain occupation for doctors and nurses. Of course, there are other exceptions such as death and disability charges if your school closes, false certification, which means that your school signed your loan paperwork without your authorization. That does quite happen a lot. Or also unpaid refund discharges. So these are some of the conditions as to when your student loan forgiveness will become tax-free. Now, what this bill changes is the fact that if you are on an income-driven repayment plan and your student loan gets forgiven, now any forgiven amount is tax-free. Now, previously it wasn't. If you were on an income-driven repayment plan and let's say your student loan does get forgiven or canceled, that amount will be added into your income and becomes taxable. Now, before we continue, let's go and define what is an income-driven repayment plan. Now, an income-driven repayment plan, also known as an IDR, is a program that the Department of Education offers to borrowers, especially for those that are struggling with their income requirements or they're not making as much money. Now, to explain the income-driven repayment plan in plain English and to make this really, really easy to understand, basically it means that your lender, the person obviously you're making your student loan payment to, would change the minimum payment amount based on how much you actually make as far as your income. So basically what this means is that if you don't make a whole lot of money, the lender will go and change the minimum payment down and decrease it to where they believe that it might be affordable to you to continue making the monthly payment. Now, of course, if you're making good money, then the lender will not offer the income-driven repayment plan. You'll just have to make a repayment based on the normal payoff schedule for your student loan. So think of the income-driven repayment plan as a way for the government to help borrowers that aren't making enough money to obviously take a break or at least make a very small contribution or payment to their student loans because they obviously simply can't afford it. But here's one major drawback when it comes to the income-driven repayment plan, and that is, well, let's say you were supposed to make $500 a month for your student loan. That's the normal schedule. But with the IDR, with the income-driven repayment plan, let's say the lender adjusted your monthly payment down to $200 because they believe that's the amount that you can afford. Now, the problem is that the unpaid $300 portion, right, because you were supposed to pay $500, now you only have to pay $200 under the IDR. There's a gap here, right, of $300. Well, with the IDR, the $300 of unpaid amount is still accruing interest. So this is one of the big reasons why a lot of people who have been paying on their student loans for the last 10, 15 years, their balance actually went up because the unpaid amount of the monthly payment that they were supposed to make is still accruing interest. I mean, way to get screwed, right? I mean, that's terrible. So you can see why there's a huge drawback. And can you imagine, let's say you started out with $60,000 in terms of your student loan balance, but your loan got jacked up to $80,000 because of, being on the IDR. Well, at the end of 20 to 25 year period, you're expected to pay taxes on $80,000 of that amount being forgiven. So you can see that this adds a huge insult to injury and does not help with individuals that are getting their student loan forgiveness. So this stimulus package does solve that issue, and here's how. Any individual or borrower on the income-driven repayment plan would see a student loan forgiveness tax-free. Now, there's a couple implications to this, and that is that with individuals that are on the income-driven repayment plan, the student loan cancellation only happens after 20 to 25 years on the income-driven plan. So if you're on the income-driven repayment plan right now, typically after 20 to 25 years being on that plan, that student loan amount automatically gets canceled or been forgiven. Now, after the 20 to 25 year mark, when your student loan does get forgiven, traditionally without the stimulus package, that amount would have been taxed and you would have to pay an enormous amount of tax bill at the end of your tax year. Now with this new stimulus package, any individual that has been on the income-driven repayment plan for the last 20 years and expected to get a forgiveness in the next 4 years between now to 2025, they would see a major tax break with the student loan forgiveness. So you can see that this implies that one individual had to have been in the income-driven repayment plan for the last 20 to 25 years, which means that they weren't making enough money to cover the full payment on what they were required to pay as far as their student loan repayment. So how does this all wind back down to the conversation of an actual student loan forgiveness? Now, of course, just like I mentioned throughout this video, this stimulus package does not forgive student loans, but it does pave a way for student loan forgiveness to be easier and an idea of student loan proposal to be passed. Now, I already talked about some of the complications as far as an actual student loan forgiveness happening. I have another video on that. I'll post that down below. But President Biden is currently proposing a $10,000 student loan forgiveness. And of course, with this tax-free provision until 2025, any student loan forgiveness that does get implemented by either President Biden's executive order or by Congress taking action, all student loan forgiveness, that $10,000 student loan forgiveness will become tax-free now that the stimulus package has been passed. So think of this as a stepping stone for an actual student loan forgiveness to actually happen. So right now, as we publish this video, there's no actual plan for a student loan forgiveness, but there is a proposal on the table by President Biden to forgive $10,000 of student loan. Now, of course, if an actual student loan forgiveness does happen, there are plenty of questions such as, well, will there be an inflation? What happens to the taxes? I mean, there's a lot of questions to be asked in terms of macroeconomics, and Daniel will go ahead and make a video on that for you guys, and he'll answer some questions about, will this cause inflation? What's gonna happen to the value of dollars? What's gonna happen to tax rates? It is being said that even with this current stimulus package, the government will lose $44 million of tax revenue because of this provision. So because the government is making student loan tax-free, one Wall Street Journal writer pretty much says that $44 million of revenue will be lost just because of this stimulus package. So you can imagine if all $10,000 worth of student loans are forgiven, you can imagine the amount of tax revenue will be lost because of this provision. So one would wonder, well, are we gonna see a tax rate increase? Are we gonna see an increase of taxes? I mean, right now, there's even a conversation about taxing unrealized gains and assets, which obviously is a huge, huge controversial topic, and we can always talk about that here in our channel. But so I don't know, could there be an increase of taxes in the next 5 to 10 years? Go and share your thoughts down below. What do you guys think? Do you think we're gonna end up paying more taxes because of this? Or do you think the government's just gonna keep on printing money and getting that inflation rate up, right? So let me know what you guys think. We'd love to hear your thoughts about it. So as far as an actual student loan forgiveness, that has not happened with this stimulus package, but it does pave a way for an actual student loan forgiveness to happen easier than the past. Now, just as I mentioned with my other video sharing my thoughts about student loans, I think student loans are terrible. I think we are in a crisis, and I seriously do think that we need to find a permanent solution to completely fix the funding of higher education and colleges and universities in general. And I also shared my thoughts how not everyone should go to college, right? Some people do well starting their own business. Some people do well going to trade school. Some people do well joining the military. So I don't think college is the universal answer to all jumpstart for a career. I think there are plenty of other avenues to get a career started and ultimately find a passion or a skill that one could truly, truly enjoy. And I said this in my other video that my idea is that instead of issuing student loans, that individual companies and private companies should offer some kind of education/mentorship track to where individuals can get education for free. In exchange, they would have to commit to working for a certain company for a set amount of years with reduced pay. I think that would be a tremendous opportunity for a lot of individuals wanting to acquire skill and also work for a company, get paid. And I truly believe that that could be a really, really great way to solve the student loan crisis, because obviously if we don't solve it, if we don't do anything about how to actually fund a higher education, we're gonna see this problem over and over again. I mean, sure, we can forgive student loans now, but what happens 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, and we're faced with the same exact situation, same exact problem and challenge? Are we gonna go back and forgive student loans again in 20 years from now? I don't know. I don't know if that's the most efficient and the effective way to deal with the student loan crisis. And I truly believe that the way to solve that is the root of the problem, which comes down to how education is offered to the public and to the private as well. So that being said, those are just my thought, my perspective. You guys can go and share yours. I'd love to hear about it. But with that being said, that is the latest update as far as what's happening with student loan forgiveness and how the stimulus package does change everything that has to do with student loans. So that being said, folks, we're gonna have some more videos about this, and we'll track this, and we'll make sure you guys get updates as soon as possible. That being said, subscribe to our channel and hit the like button if you guys enjoyed this. We'll definitely go and see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.